All right, as you can see, completely tore apart the front of the Simplicity Sovereign. I took the Briggs engine out, the fuel system, the electrical system. I even removed this little structure here that kind of connected to the dash, and it had the fuel tank and the battery on it and everything. I took that out. So this is all wide open. I have all this real estate to work with and to look at this thing. Basically, in the last video I had on this Simplicity Sovereign, I bought it dirt cheap at an auction. I typically don't buy these because I hate these Briggs engines, but it was so cheap I had to have it. It was a barn find. It was dusty. It needed work. I knew that. I bought it. It sat for a while. I finally brought it into my garage to dig into it and try to get this thing running. So in the last video, I had actually recorded about 30 hours of footage trying to get this engine to run. And I did get it to run. After doing a valve job, retapping the exhaust threading, new head gasket, switched over the ignition system to an electronic ignition, so there's no more points in condenser. Did a whole bunch of stuff to this engine. It starts hard, runs like crap, and it doesn't run long enough for me to really fine tune it. Smokes really bad, and it's excessively loud. I've had these engines before. I know they're loud anyway, but something doesn't seem right with it, and I'm really tired of putting money and time into that. So in this video, now if you're a fan of these old Simplicities and Allis-Chalmers tractors, you're not going to like this video. But in this video, for the first time in my life, I want to modify a Predator engine from Harbor Freight to work in this machine. Now I've had this Simplicity Sovereign, I've had a Simplicity Landlord, and I've had 4 or 5 different Allis-Chalmers. I've had a B1, B10, B2 something, B1 something. That was like 15 years ago. I've always liked the garden tractors. They're workhorses, they're strong, but I hate those Briggs engines. So for the first time in my life, I want to modify this so then I can put a more affordable and more reliable Honda clone engine in this. If you're one of those people that loves keeping things original and stuff, that's awesome. I applaud you for that. It's expensive and a lot of work to keep that old iron operating, and I respect that. I admire that. For me though, I like my stuff, I'm really impatient. I like my stuff to start up right away, runs good, lasts forever. If something breaks, I want it to be cheap. I want parts to be readily available. And if for some reason a Honda clone engine just cascades itself and explodes into a million pieces, I can go buy another one, drop it in there in 10 minutes. So that's why I want to do that. I want to make this, I want to use this thing. I just want to have an engine where you're not, a slave to the old cast iron Briggs engines. This right here is a early to mid 70s Boland's G Series garden tractor. A day or two after I got this thing home, I went and got an 8 horsepower Predator engine from Harbor Freight. I had it dropped into this thing in less than 10 minutes. I put a pulley on it, bolted it in, threw the belts on it, and it was driving. So obviously Boland's is friendly for these modern day engines. Not all companies make it easy. Boland's it's easy, Sears it's easy, a lot of case tractors it's super easy with the pumps and everything. But anyway, dropping these engines in to machines like this, it completely revitalizes them. They're just fantastic. So that's what I want to do to this machine. Now, a little kind of FYI here on how this design is messed up, if you're wondering. This shaft right here has to turn in this direction for everything on this machine to operate correctly, okay? That's just the way it is. Now, in order to get that direction to spin, you have to use the flywheel side of an engine. This side here. So that's where that shaft bolts right up into this flywheel. And when it's running, this side of the engine is rotating clockwise. If you go to the other side, this shaft here is rotating counterclockwise. Now, 99% of all modern day small engines, especially horizontal shaft, that only have one visible output shaft on them, they're always going to turn counterclockwise. That's just how it is. That's just how they make them. Like the Bolands, sometimes they match up just fine, sometimes they don't. It depends on the drive system. So the problem you encounter here is you cannot just go get a Predator engine and bolt it in here and hook it up to that shaft and you're good to go. It doesn't work that way. If you stick a Predator engine in there and you have the PTO or you have the output shaft coming out and connecting to this, it's going to try turning it this way. Can't do that. That won't work. I can't tell you how many times on Facebook Marketplace I've seen some kid selling like a John Deere 317 or something, and he says, you know, the rear end or whatever is junk, and when you look at their post, you can see they have a little 6.5 horse Predator bolted up to this, and they have no idea that their design is spinning the shaft the wrong direction. So it's like no wonder the, you know, the drive system won't work. It's obviously a little different in a John Deere, but same concept really. So I see that all the time. It's a pain, makes it really difficult to put cheaper engines in these. Now there are ways around that. You can get like a 420cc Predator or a 670cc V-twin Predator, and you can get these little shaft pieces that basically bolt onto your flywheel, and it'll have a machine shaft coming off of it. So you can actually bolt those onto the flywheel of some Predator engines, as long as they're electric start, of course, and then you can kind of modify from there on out. So that is an option I could do with this one. But the problem with that is you have to get an engine that's got electric start on it, because you can't utilize the recoil start because you have to have that shaft part coming off of the flywheel. Now I can post something in the description about that if you're wondering what that part is that I'm talking about. It's like a billet aluminum add-on that's like 30 bucks on Amazon and eBay for the 670cc Predators. There's a company in the state of Iowa that manufactures those for the 420cc Predator engines. But anyway, that's an option, but it's expensive, and I'm trying to keep this cheap. I spent so little on this thing at auction anyway. I don't want to pour a ton of money into this, or any more than I already have, I guess. So, with that being said, if I want to drop an 8 horsepower Predator engine in this thing, it's going to be pull start, no electric start, so I can't do that. But while I was looking at this thing, I had a breakthrough, and I noticed something that I've never seen before. Never noticed. So here's this shaft here, and when it's turning the proper direction, you'll notice that pulley right there, it's spinning counterclockwise. Now there's that shaft here comes up to this junction, and then there's another shaft, and there's a pulley on each end. There's the pulley that goes to the drive system. This pulley here is like a mid-mount PTO pulley. It's always live, it's always spinning. I do have a mid-mount PTO setup for this. It's just not on it right now, obviously. I have no mowing deck for it, so I didn't really need it on there. It just jiggled around and made noise anyway. But this pulley right here spins counterclockwise when you're looking at it from this direction, and it's always live. What I realized is I can actually drop a Predator engine or any Honda clone engine right here with the shaft facing towards the camera, and when you're looking at it and it's running, it's going to be spinning counterclockwise, as is that. So in theory, if you ran a belt from that under all this crap, came up, had it connected to a pulley on the engine, when you start that engine, it would be running counterclockwise, and that's what you need. That, I think that would work. And the cool thing about that design is that the belt can be tight all the time. It never has to be loose. So if if I fabricate a couple idler pulleys that keeps this belt going to the engine tight, I never have to loosen it. It can always be tight. That's just, it'd be the same way if the Briggs are on here, because this thing would, it's always spinning. If the Briggs is running, this is always spinning. Whether you're neutral or using the PTO or not, doesn't matter, it's always spinning. Same thing with that belt. It would always spin, that's just the way it is. The drive system, and a stroke of genius actually, for as much as I don't like these garden tractors, the whole drive system with the tensioner and everything is all like on its own. I wouldn't even have to touch it. All you have to do is get this shaft up here with the 2 pulleys on it to spin. That's all you gotta do, and the drive system is all on its own, which is awesome, because obviously having a belt over here going to the engine, there's a bunch of crap in the way. There's steering components, your footrest, lever, which I do need because I do want to put a plow on this. Since I don't have to make, you know, a belt tensioner, really, that belt can just be tightened with idler pulleys, and then that's the end of it. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, what I got here is a laser. You're probably not going to be able to see it very well, so I apologize for that. My GoPro just doesn't pick it up very good. This isn't going to be completely straight, but basically what I've done here is I've lined the vertical laser up on that pulley back there, and if you follow the line, I don't know if you can see this or not, there's a line on this, on the front of this tractor right now, right here. So literally, if I drop an engine in here, you know, fabricate a mount and everything, have the engine in here, and then have a pulley on the output shaft, if the middle of that pulley follows this line back to the middle of that pulley back there, then I will have a completely straight line for that belt to be ran from back there up to the engine. So that's what I'm going to do. What that means is that I'm going to have to probably hack a little bit of this frame out. Cut a little hole, that way I can have the belt come up through the bottom. I thought about having the belt kind of go upward through here and then back down to the engine. I haven't decided yet. I gotta do some measuring, some planning and stuff. Now, just in case my design doesn't work, or you know, I have a problem or something like that, I don't want to buy an engine for this thing yet. So I have an 8-horse Predator in that Bollins that I can take out in less than 10 minutes. So I'm gonna borrow that engine out of there, and I'm gonna use that to get things lined up here. If my design works, I can throw that Predator back onto that, go get a brand new 8-horse, and then drop it in here, and I know that it'll fit no problem. So that's what I'm gonna do next. Take that engine out. I'm gonna do a bunch of measuring, figure out a plan here, and I'll kind of show you what I'm doing. And hopefully I'll be one of the first people that actually gets something to work on here, other than having to deal with Briggs or deal with the flywheel side of a different engine. So let's get to it. All right, a few hours later, I had to change up my design a little bit. My measurements were way off, and I had to end up cutting out the square tubing that I was planning on using. the last clip that you saw, the engine, you probably couldn't tell, but the engine was way too high. There was no way I was going to get this hood to fit on there, and I really want to use the hood. So I had to lower it quite a bit, so I kind of changed my materials around. I used some smaller square tubing, a little piece of angle iron here, and then this plate right here. If you go back in on my channel about a year and a half, I had a red Sears 10XL that I bought this mounting plate for to mount an engine on it, but I never ended up using this, so I just held on to it, and I'm glad I did because I'm using it now. It has slots in there, which I actually extended a little bit. I drilled holes to make it a little bit longer, but I can slide this engine forward and backward, and if I really have to, I can even make it a little bigger so I can slide the engine side to side if need be. But it's kind of a tight squeeze in here with that 8-horse Predator, so I got to pay attention to this right here. This moves when you depress the clutch, and then there's the linkage right here that goes to the rear hitch, and that moves with this handle, so I got to pay attention to that. And then of course I want to clear the grill and the hood, so, and it also has to be lined up good enough that I can get my belt properly ran along the side of the machine down to that pulley. So there's a lot going on here. It's going to take a lot of finesse, which is why a lot of this I'm not filming, because I'm just kind of doing it as I go, trying to figure things out. But anyway, this is bolted in right now, and this angle iron right here, I'm actually, as you can see, there's a bunch of paint ground off. I'm actually going to end up welding this angle iron directly onto this machine. I'm not going to weld it, you know, super solid or anything, just a good weld on each side of this angle iron, and that's going to keep this thing nice and sturdy. But to be honest with you, even though I'm welding on this thing, it's nothing that can't be ground back off. So I'm really not changing, you know, the original structure of the frame, other than grinding the original paint off, which, you know, I know, whatever. But it's shaping up pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is see if I can get this Predator kind of test bolted on here, just to kind of see how it's lining up, and if it's good, then I'll continue with finishing up these mounts here. So I have all 4 bolts going through the engine block and through that plate. So if all 4 of them fit in there the way they do right now, obviously I can put nuts and washers on, and the mount, I think, will be okay. The next thing to do, now that it fits, now I got to double check that it's in the right spot. There's a few different ways I can do that. I obviously want this thing to be square and everything. I don't want the belt, you know, to be at an angle, because it'll naturally want to kind of come off the pulley, if that makes any sense. But now with all the bolts in there, even though I didn't put the nuts on, hopefully they stay in, I can kind of shimmy this engine around very slightly. To me it looks pretty square, but I can use, you know, some measuring tools and whatnot to double check that. One thing I do like though is, since the belt has to go basically through this channel right here to the output shaft, I like that there's enough space here for the key that I can push a pulley back far enough on this output shaft, so then the pulley lines up with the belt. Before I even stuck this in there, I was a little concerned about the exhaust here. I don't know what size of pulley I'm putting on this just yet, because I can't seem to, I'm not sure what the ratios and whatnot would be. I don't want this thing extremely fast, and I don't want it really, really slow either, because to be honest with you, these things are already pretty slow. They're geared pretty low, it seems like. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I just think that. But in a way, I kind of just want to do like a 1-to-1 ratio. I really don't want to have any sort of change going from this pulley back to that one. I just want it to run that pulley is all, and let the gears do their thing. But anyway, depending on the size of pulley that I put on here, I have to make sure that the belt does not rub the bottom side of this exhaust. Obviously, it's something I can't really move out of the way. If I really wanted to, I could make some sort of custom exhaust pipe or something, but I'm not gonna go through that. When it comes to belts, they're not that difficult. You can get idler pulleys that are either flat or V-grooved, depending on what side of the belt you want to put them on. I do have a belt that I know is too short, but I could probably use it as kind of a reference for now. But I do need to, if this is where the engine is going to be, then I need to get a good measurement and go get some belts. And I have to start the whole game of, you know, trying each belt 1 inch at a time and finding one that works properly. But I want it to be as short a belt as possible, so then the belt's really close. The distance between the top and bottom of the belt, when it goes from this pulley up through here to the engine output shaft, I don't want a huge belt where I have to have idler, you know, pulleys all over this thing, idler wheels. So yeah, I have some measuring and whatnot to do. But in fact, this is the pulley that I pulled off of that engine that is specific to my Bollens. And these are different sizes, but I don't know, let's see. Okay, that's the size pulley that's on there now. Okay, so this pulley here is a little smaller, and this here is a I'd say 4 1/4, somewhere near that. Closer to 4 there. So I'll probably use a pulley somewhere around this size. I don't know yet, but if I want to, I can actually stick this on there. Kind of as a reference. See what I mean? This really doesn't have to be that much longer to get around this pulley. Now obviously this is going to be a tight belt anyway. It's not supposed to get loose at all. So the tighter this belt is kind of on its own, the better. But I do have to have enough slack that I can use idler wheels to manipulate this belt to go where I want it to go and stay out of the way of everything else. Like the exhaust, for instance, which that's going to be a tough one. I am worried about this exhaust though. That is kind of a pain right there. You might not be able to really tell from this video, but that pulley back there is definitely in quite a ways, so I'm gonna want the belt to be as close to this engine as possible. Yeah, you can't see it, everything is kind of covered right now, but that right there is pretty good. But that means it's gonna be directly underneath of this exhaust, and then unless I have an idler pulley right here, it's obviously going to be very close to this mount for the lever. So a lot more work to do here. I think my next step, I'm probably gonna go get a couple belts, so what I need to do now is I'm gonna take some measurements and I'm gonna try to get a rough idea of what size belt that I want. And then I'll probably have to go try to find some cheap belts somewhere in the size that I need. And I'll probably get a couple sizes smaller and a couple sizes bigger than what I estimate that I'll need. And then obviously anybody who's ever messed around with V-belts before, you know that you try them out. Whatever doesn't work, you take back to the store. And even if there's a little bit of grease on it, they usually take it back because they know how it goes. Okay, so I did some measuring and I did some weird math here. It's gonna sound kind of stupid, but as you can see, I took this belt that I already have, which is a 1/2 by 66.9, which is weird. I don't know why they just don't do 67, but this is a 1/2 by 67 belt. Obviously I tried to kind of straighten it out, get it as taut as I kind of could. It's just an estimate anyway, so I'm not too worried about it, but from end to end is 32. I measured 32, right? So 2 sides times it by 2, that's 64. So I compared that measurement to what the actual size of this belt is on this cardboard, which it's 67. So 64 to 67, that's a 3-inch variance. That's how off I am from the actual measurement of this belt. So that's what I'm trying to account for, is how I'm going to be off. Now, I took a tape measure, kind of did the same thing I did with that belt, only I measured from the end of that pulley straight to the end of this pulley. Now, the variable here is, you know, the distance is the curvature of the belt that has to go around these big pulleys, but this is an estimate. So I measured outside to outside and I got 34.5, which, you know, there's 2 sides to that belt, so I doubled it, and that's 69 even. And then I added my 3-inch variance. So my estimated belt size, I think, should be 1/2 by 72 inches, which would be 5 inches larger than this belt, technically. Now that's just kind of an estimate, as if I were going straight from one pulley to the other, but in this case, since I have this lever right here that's kind of in the way, I literally cannot go straight from the bottom of this pulley down to the bottom of this one. If I ran a string line from the bottom of this pulley up to the bottom of that one, that string line would intersect right through the mount right here for this lever. So with that being said, I have to account for an idler wheel back here that's going to raise up that belt to go over this mount right here for the lever, and then down underneath that pulley. Kind of the same thing up top as well. If it'll run straight from the top of this pulley to the top of this one and I don't have to mess with it, fantastic, that's fine by me. That means one idler wheel right here on the side of this mount. But I have to account for that, and that changes the arithmetic a little bit. I'm not a math wizard, so I'm not really sure how to calculate that, and you can do all the math in the world and still be way off on your belt sizes. It's just the way it's always worked out for me anyway. But so what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get a 72, since that's my kind of original estimate, a 73, and a 74. So I'm gonna get 3 belts. At the minimum, I would think that the 1/2 by 72 would be, you know, pretty close, but I'll go from there. If all 3 of them don't work, it's not the end of the world. I'll make sure I don't get them dirty, and I'll take them back and return them. But I'm gonna start there. So I need to go get some belts, and maybe when I'm getting belts I can think about finding a pulley for this. Now, as much as I like this pulley right here, it's completely not necessary in this situation, because obviously this is for the Bolins. That's what this pulley is for. But in this situation, I really only need a pulley that has one groove in it, and it's going to be tight all the time. So it doesn't matter to me. As long as it's tight, it's not going to hop off of the pulley, or it shouldn't. I really shouldn't have to worry about making a whole bunch of you know, a whole bunch of those things that keep the belt guides, or whatever you want to call them, that keeps the belt from flying off of the pulley, because it's never really going to be loose. It's always going to be tight. But if I really have to, I can get some metric fittings or metric bolts and stick them in there. I've done it before on some of my Sears tractors. But another thing too that I like to do when I buy garden tractors, I already know that that the transmission in this thing works. I tested it in the first video I had on this unit. But if you're ever curious, put it in its highest gear, which in this case it has 3 forward gears in reverse. So I have it in 3rd gear, right? So that's the fastest. Now, even though this is a CVT transmission, or whatever the heck it's called, that uses that variable thing, all you really have to do is all I have to do is turn this pulley in the direction that it'll be rotating if the engine were running. So in this case, counterclockwise. That's how much it moves by turning it that little. So when you know, have an engine running at whatever RPM, that's how the transmission to power affects this rear end. So I know that it works. Reverse is lower geared, so it's not going to move as much. That's why if I'm, you know, trying to double check a non-running unit, if the transmission works, that's why I always put it in the highest gear, because you'll see the most movement out of the rear end. So there's a huge speed difference there. But alright, so I went to Tractor Supply. I got a couple V-belts. I got a 1/2 x 74 and a 1/2 x 72. These were over 20 bucks a piece, so I didn't want to buy 5 of them, but I'm going to start with these 2 sizes, kind of go from there. I also got some more bolts for bolting the engine down. Unfortunately, for some reason, my Tractor Supply store does not sell pulleys anymore. So I'm going to have to kind of use the one off of my Bolins as a kind of a test pulley. And if I can get these belts to fit, then I'll just buy a pulley that's the same size as whatever side of this pulley the belt fits on. So, as these are different. But so, next thing I need to do here is, I know that the engine location is fine. So I'm gonna take the engine out. I'm gonna finish welding in the mount, and then I'll bolt the engine in good and tight, get it lined up and centered correctly, get the pulley put on there, and then start messing with the belts. As you can see, for fun, I stuck the hood on there and it does fit, so that's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. So I'll get my welder out and continue on. I can't believe it, but the first belt that I tried actually did work. I think it's a little bit too tight. I don't think that's good for the belt. And then I borrowed a flat idler pulley off of the Bolins just to kind of test this. I don't want the belt rubbing on this little mount here for the lever. But right now this pulley is like at an angle. It's tweaked a little bit. And so what it's going to do is it's going to try to force this belt off of there. So it might fall off when I start this, but as long as I can test this enough to know that my design is going to work, then I can order a new flat idler pulley and actually take the time to get it square and everything. And I would actually like to order one that has a little lip on each side, so then the belt actually can't come off. Like I said, they didn't have that or normal pulleys, like engine output pulleys. They didn't have, like I said, they didn't have idler pulleys or, you know, normal output shaft pulleys that Tractor Supply for some reason. So I'll have to order one online, but for now, this is just for testing. I pretty much got everything cinched down. The only thing left to do is I snipped the electrical when I borrowed this off of the Bolins because I had moved the on-off switch up to the dash. So I need to strip this and run a wire from the end of this and just ground it off somewhere, and then it'll start. And then to shut it off, I just need to pull the wires apart. So let's give this a try, see what happens. Cool. Now I'm not surprised that that worked by any means, but sometimes my own genius kind of scares me. Worked exactly the way I thought it should. So I guess that's just from years of playing around with this stuff, but obviously there's a whole bunch of small things that need to be worked out. You know, I just mocked this together just to make sure everything would be good. But anyway, so I need another 8-horse engine because this engine needs to go back on the Bolins. That pulley belongs to the Bolins. I need to get a new pulley that's the same diameter as that one, and if I really wanted to, I could even go a little bit smaller on that pulley because I believe right now this belt is a little too tight. Now that's obviously adjustable. When I get a new flat idler pulley, I can kind of put that pulley where I want it to adjust how tight that is. You don't want V-belts overly tight, and you don't want them so loose that they're gonna, you know, slip on the pulleys because that'll burn them out faster. But you gotta find that good middle ground, kind of by playing with it, or, you know, using the correct equipment with the correct setups or whatever, which in this case I'm not. This is custom. I had to prop this up so then this piece of metal here wouldn't hit that belt. That's something I didn't think about. Now obviously, you know, I don't want to have to cut that, but I'm not really sure how to remedy that yet. If I really had to, I could mess around with the belt more and have a longer belt so then the belt can go down and then come back up. But then that's just more idler pulleys and, or idler wheels, and yeah, more messing around. But yeah, I think it's gonna work. So I need to do that, and when I take this engine off, I can maybe throw some, find some sort of orange that matches the rest of this unit and paint that mount that the engine goes on, because it's gonna rust really bad if I don't. And I already know, you know, from playing around with this thing, that the grill fits and the hood fits. So if I get another 8-horse Predator bolted in the exact same spot that this is bolted in there now, everything will go back together the way it should. A lot of just finesse work, little tiny things that, you know, kind of sucks. It's always the worst part of these projects, in my opinion. I have no problem, you know, welding and cutting and whatever, but it's the like finding the right spots and little tiny things that make a big difference that, I don't know, they're always kind of a pain. But anyway, that's pretty sweet. Honestly, I'm a little PO'd because I've sold a lot of these garden tractors only because of how much I hated the cast iron Briggs. And I know that if you're a fan of these things, that sounds stupid and it's, you know, could probably enrage you a little bit, but I just really don't like those cast iron Briggs at all. Obviously this 8-horse right here, if you put this 8-horse engine in this machine against the same machine that has a good running cast iron Briggs, that cast iron Briggs is going to beat this thing out in power all day long, especially low end power. This thing's only 8 horse at like 3,600 RPM. So it's really not a lot of power anyway, but I'm kind of leaving all the gearing here to do the work. If you go back in my videos, I had a 1972 Sears 10XL that had a 6.5 horse Predator on it. It didn't have a lot of power, but it had enough power that it pulled stuff and it pushed dirt and snow just fine. So it's really all about the gearing when it comes down to it. If I would have known this whole time that I could have just done this belt setup on these machines, I probably would have kept them because I always really liked them. So I completely bypassed that shaft and then the rotational problem that you have with these engines in these and John Deere 300 series tractors and some Cub Cadets and yada yada. Just absolutely drives me nuts. And if somebody really wanted to make some good money, they would produce a small engine like this that either had both output shafts exposed, or they made this somehow, they manufactured it so there'd be an output shaft on the flywheel side, is what I'm getting at. Because they would save a lot of machines from getting taken to the scrapyard because people don't know about the directional thing. But alright, moving on with the Simplicity project. So instead of buying another 8-horse Predator engine, I just took the 8-horse off of my Bohlins. This is a good engine, but I think it's a little underpowered for the mowing deck on the Bohlins, so I'll probably end up throwing something different on that. But since this works on the Simplicity, I'm just going to use it. So I went ahead, got a few things. I got a new 4-inch single groove pulley for the Predator. Got a new flat idler wheel with ridges on the side to help keep the belt on there. This is the belt that I tested earlier. This is a 1/2 by 74. I might go one size larger, haven't decided yet. Basically the pulley I just got it's the same size as the smaller pulleys on this pulley right here that came off of the Bohlins, but it is a little bit smaller than what I tested it with, I think. So it's possible this belt might fit a little bit better, but I'll get the engine mounted on the Simplicity, and then I can probably even play with the, you know, the mounting position for this engine anyway. That way this belt's not so tight, but might have to get some more parts yet, not sure. I also got a can of tractor spray paint from TSC. This is AC Orange. May or may not match the color that's on this thing already, but I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna go over this inside part right here and let it dry nice, and then throw the engine in there. I just want to prevent any surface rust where that exposed metal is, and make it look just a little bit nicer, even though this isn't like a showroom project. But yeah, so I'm gonna wheel this outside, throw a coat of paint on the inside here quick, and then I'll get to putting the engine on. That's it. That's all I really need. I just wanted to cover that with a little bit of orange. I gotta let that dry. The weather's terrible right now for spray painting anything, so it's gonna take forever for that to dry. Might have to push that on more, but I'll wait. Okay. So I kind of came up with this wacky little wiring thing to move the kill switch on the Bolins, and I had to cut it to get this engine out, so I have to rewire this kill switch. Alright, so when I had that Predator engine mocked up on here so I could kind of test out my my belt idea, I had borrowed a flat idler pulley off of the Bolins, and I drilled a hole right here and had that little idler pulley mounted right on the side here. The problem with that is the center of this garden tractor. I don't know if you can see that. I can't see my screen, but anyway, the design on this thing, it's skinny in the middle here, and then it tapers outward to where it's wide where the engine goes. So this right here is not parallel with the engine mounts or my belt design. And I knew that when I was mocking this up. So I need this idler wheel to be nice and straight with the belt. So I either need to cut a little bit into the side of this frame and pound that tab inward, or I can weld something on the side here that can, you know, bring the mounting pole outward, or I can use some sort of shim between this idler wheel and the frame. Just something to twist this idler wheel so then it's straight. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, so I'm gonna play with it for a little bit. Alright, off camera and outside, so I didn't start a fire, I took my cutting wheel on my grinder and I cut out 3/4 of a rectangle out of the frame there so I can bend it. And as you can see, I already started bending that tab and it's coming outward, so my idea is working. Basically, I'm just going to stick the idler wheel on there, and I can move it until that idler wheel is parallel with the engine mounts and the belt. So when I find where I want to put it, I'll just take my welder and weld this thing solid so it's good and strong. I also elongated this hole a little bit, so then if I need to move that idler wheel backward or forward, depending on what size belt that I end up using and how tight or how loose I want that belt, at least it's somewhat adjustable. If I really have to, I can even make that longer. So trying to give it, you know, a little bit of leeway here. Same thing with the engine mounts. I can slide the engine forward and backward depending on what's going on with the belt. So I also drew out a little bit of metal here that I had to cut, so I cut that, ground it down, made it look halfway decent, and it's not so sharp, and that completely clears, for the most part, clears that pulley down there. And if I really have to, if it's still a little bit close, I can always cut more or grind more off of that. So, but I got that done, and then took a step bit and I drilled out this ignition hole a little bit. I'm gonna put my ignition switch right here. The paint's drying up, so I'm gonna put this engine on here and get at it. All right, there you have it. It's all together. Sorry that was a time lapse, but it took me a long time. It would have been a ton of footage, working all the bugs out and whatnot, but pretty much got it all together. Engine's mounted in there good and secure. The electric is done. I have the throttle cable hooked up, but unfortunately right now it's at low idle and that's high idle. which is fine with me. I know that bothers some people, but I don't care. Got the kill switch up here that the hole was too big, so it didn't want to stay put, so I just put a self-tapper in there that hits on that red button a little bit, but it works. Got the belt put on there. I did have to push this pulley in a little bit, so then this belt's lined up. I might be able to show what I mean by that, but I apologize if I can. It's not an easy camera angle, but yeah, I don't know if you can see that. But I pretty much lined it up by eye. So I moved this in a little bit, tightened down the set screws. The belt fits very well. Got the flat idler right here that's bolted where my little self-made notch is, which I still need to bend it a little bit and then probably spot weld it. But right now it actually is, it's staying put really well. So as far as the pulley goes back here, this fender, even though I cut it, as far as this pulley back here, the belt was really close to this fender, even though I had cut it, so I had to cut it even more. But now it's good. I don't think it should rub. The fender is all the way down, sitting where it should be, so I don't think the belt is going to touch anything it shouldn't be. It's even up off that mount there for the lever, so nothing's touching where it shouldn't. So I think this belt should last a while. It's not insanely tight, but it's still really tight. I don't know if I'm gonna go up one size bigger for belt yet, but I'll see what happens. What else? Got some different little bolts here in this thing that just basically stops this lever from going too far one way or the other. This right here is the snowplow that came off of the Bolins, and like I said, it is so much like what an actual Allis-Chalmers Simplicity plow looks like. So I think I can do a little bit of modifying, at least for the mounts, to get this plow to mount to this. And I'll be able to use this lever and everything, and you can actually move these little bolts to kind of decide what the max height or max low height is for this lever, if that makes sense. So probably have to adjust that later, but at least for now it's not gonna come back and hit your leg or whatever. Got the grill and the hood on there obviously, and it's not gonna rattle because I tightened it down with bolts. It looks a little strange because there's no side panels on it, which, yeah, it kind of sucks I couldn't use those, but obviously this build right here is just for function. It's not for any sort of looks. Well, not 100% for looks, but still have my chrome I still have my chrome hubcaps that I can put on this thing, which is cool because I've never had them before, and I did clean them up, so they're pretty good looking. What else? Oh yeah, so there is one thing that concerns me, and that is that the muffler empties exhaust out this way. So it's going to get crazy hot underneath this dash, and the heat's going to kind of collect right here, and then my leg is going to be right here, so it's going to be I'm kind of curious to see how that exhaust is going to be. Obviously in the winter time it'd be excellent, but when it's 100 degrees like it is right now, it's not a lot of fun. But the funny thing is, this hood already has a hole right here where the fuel tank used to go with the old setup, and the exhaust is right underneath of it. So if I really had to, I could put an exhaust stack on this thing. It'd look a little bit weird. You'd have to take it apart if you want to take the hood off to add fuel and everything, but yeah, it's quite the unit. So this is kind of a strange design. Obviously I need to start this thing up, and I need to drive it and everything and make sure everything's good. I think it should be okay. I don't know if you saw in the time lapse, but I did top off the gear oil in this little part of the gear system here for the pulley, and I also topped off the rear end. Actually, I didn't top it off. I put some in there, but it never actually like poured out of this top hill or top. It never actually poured out of this top hole right here, so I don't think it's full. So I need to keep checking that. But at least there's some more fluid in the rear end and everything, so it should, you know, be one less thing to have problems with trying to test this thing. Got the hitch in the back. Definitely be a good rig to pull trailers and whatnot around with. I hope this thing has good power. But anyway, enough jabbing. I'm going to stick the chrome hubcaps on, and then I'm going to start this thing up and take it for a drive. Sweet. All right, there you have it. I guess I can call that a Predator swap on an old Simplicity / Ellis Chalmers. So it can be done. It's a weird design. It does work well. The Vari-Drive on this machine's a little weird. They like either have it all the way forward and it's good, or if you bring it back to the slow option, then it like doesn't even move. It's weird. But if I would have known I could have done this on some other machines like this, I probably would have done that a long time ago instead of just getting rid of them. But one thing I do need to think about going forward with this machine is that this belt right here is very dangerous, having your left leg near that. If for any reason it wanted to pull your pant leg or your pants, and if for any reason it wanted to pull your pants into that thing, it could be, a dangerous thing. Or if the belt broke and whipped into your face or something. But anyway, at some point here I need to straighten out this idler wheel and I need to tack weld that so then it doesn't move. But honestly, it's fine the way it is right now. So it's a very cool machine. So I'm gonna, in another video here in the future, I'm gonna get that plow hooked up on this thing. Maybe get some sort of weights or something on this somewhere. Some sort of hitch set up or something. I do have chains for this unit if I need to pull something through mud or push dirt or something like that. One weird thing, and you probably couldn't tell off the video, but this thing has like a steering issue where you turn the wheel all the way and instead of turning it just pushes you forward. So I do remember my Simplicity Landlord had weird steering problems with it, especially when you were pushing dirt with it. But I don't know, my thoughts are maybe if I get a plow on the front of this, it'll put some more weight down on the front tires and maybe it'll be a little more responsive when it comes to trying to turn. But this is a super clean machine. It's cool. I like it. It's nice having a machine that actually has gears for a change, since everything that I've had, between my John Deere and these Case tractors and the Bolins with its weird clutch and everything, it's nice to have just a classic, belt tension geared system. So anyway, stay tuned in the future. I'll have more videos on this thing. It's pretty sweet. So if anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know. Please subscribe. And like always, thank you so much for watching.